Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another study session for Divine Link, the Fiqh of Salah. This is the second study session that we'll have, and I'll cover chapters 4 and 5. If you have not watched the first study session, I would recommend you go to the video description for this video and you get a link to that. So, chapter 4 begins with the conditions or the shurut for establishing Salah. So there are 6 shurut or conditions for Salah to be valid. The first is that the time for Salah has to have come in. So you have to be certain that the time for Salah has come in before you go and pray. The second condition is that you have to be ritually and physically pure. That means that you have to lift the state of hadath or ritual impurity by either performing ghusl for a major impurity or wudu for a minor impurity. And you have to remove any physical impurity from your body, from your clothes, and from the place that you're going to pray at. The next condition is that your awrah has to be covered. For men, that is between their navel and their knees. And for women, there is a difference of opinion on what exactly that is. All the scholars agree that the entire body of the woman has to be covered. The only difference of opinion is whether or not the feet have to be covered in Salah. Imam Abu Hanifa believes that women do not have to cover their feet in Salah, but Imam Malik, Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad believe that women have to cover their feet inside and outside of Salah. The next condition for establishing Salah is that the person has to be facing the Qibla. If the person can actually see the Kaaba, then that person is obligated to face the Kaaba. If the person cannot see the Kaaba, there is a difference of opinion on what that person should do. All the scholars except those from the school of Imam Shafi'i believe that the person should approximate where the Kaaba is and pray towards that. Imam Shafi'i though believes that the person has to take due diligence and has to accurately calculate where the Kaaba is and face the Kaaba. The next condition for Salah is the intention, the niyyah. It is extremely important that the person who's going to pray, know exactly what prayer they're going to perform, and they know that in their heart. The niyyah does not have to be said out loud, it just has to be in the heart of the person who is going to pray. Next, the person has to perform the Salah as a continuous act. It cannot be broken up into different pieces. The person cannot walk away from Salah and come back and resume it from where they stopped. They have to have that as one complete act of worship. The final condition is that the person cannot have any foreign speech, be it in Arabic or in another language, during Salah. So a person cannot just speak to somebody else. They cannot respond to other people by speech. The only exemption to this is that they are allowed to correct the Imam if he makes a mistake verbally. What are the arkan or the pillars of Salah? So what is a rukn? A rukn is the singular and the plural of that is arkan. And the rukn is a strong corner or load-bearing corner of a structure. So if you have a structure with like 4 corners and you take away one of the corners of the structure, your entire structure will collapse. And that is what happens if you remove one of the rukn of Salah. So technically, the rukn of Salah are the attributes of Salah that if they are absent, your Salah is negated completely. But if they are present, that does not automatically fulfill your Salah. You have to complete all the wajibat as well. The rukn of Salah are part and parcel of the Salah. There are portions of the Salah. Compare that to the shurut, which are things that you have to do before Salah and they are not part of Salah itself, like wudu for example. All the arkan of Salah are derived from the hadith of the man who prayed incorrectly, and you can find that hadith fully listed in the book. So what are the arkan of Salah? The majority of scholars believe that there are 14 arkan of Salah, while Imam Abu Hanifa believes that only 6 of these are arkan and the remaining are all just wajibat. So the first rukn is the qiyam or standing, and this is something that all the scholars believe is a rukn. The person who can stand for Salah is obligated to stand for Salah. The next rukn is the takbirat al-ihram, which is saying Allahu Akbar to start the prayer. This must be done in Arabic, and no other wording except Allahu Akbar is allowed. The recital of the Quran is a rukn of the Salah. There is a difference of opinion on whether or not the Fatiha has to be recited by the person. Imam Abu Hanifa believes that the person does not need to recite the Surah Al-Fatiha, but everyone else believes that the person has to recite Al-Fatiha for their salat to be valid. The next rukun is the ruku', followed by rising from ruku' and then sujood. For the sajda, the person has to ensure that 7 bones of their body are touching the ground. Those are the forehead, the nose, the 2 hands, the 2 feet, and the 2 knees. Following that, a person has to come back up from the sujood and sit calmly between the 2 sujood. Sitting for the last tashahhud is a rukun, but not the first one. The first tashahhud is not a rukun, the last one is. And while you're sitting there, the recital of the tahiyyat is required, and there are several different versions of the tahiyyat which you can find in the book again, followed by the recital of the Salat al-Ibrahimiyya, which is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, till the end, and you'll find several different versions of that in the book as well. The next rukun is the taslim, which is just saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to end the prayer. The next rukun is that you have to be tranquil in each position of salah. That means that you have to be at rest at each position of salah before you continue to the next position. So you cannot just continuously flow through all the positions of salah. Your body has to reach a state of rest at each position. Finally, maintaining the order of the arkan of salah is needed for salah to be valid. If you perform any of the arkan of salah out of order, your salah will be invalid. Next, we come to the wajibat of salah. The wajibat are the obligatory acts of salah that if you miss them, that does not nullify your salah, but you have to do a sajda sahu to make up for that. And this is something that we'll discuss in the next study session, inshallah. So just hang on for that. So there are 5 wajibat of salah. The first is that you have to have a takbir before you move from one position to another. The next is that you have to say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim in ruku' at least 1 time. You have to say Sami Allahu liman hamida when you return from the ruku' to the standing position. You have to say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la in every sujood at least 1 time. And you have to sit down and recite the first tashahhud. What are the acts of salah which are sunnah, which are recommended? They do not require any sajda sahu if you leave them, and they do not nullify your salah if you leave them. The first is that you place a sutra or barrier in front of the person who is praying. So the sutra or barrier should at least be the height of a saddle. The next is that you raise your hands when you're saying the takbir. The scholars differ on this. So Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik believe that you should not raise your hands except for the first takbir, that is the takbiratul ihram, whereas Imam Ahmad and Imam Shafi'i believe that there are 4 times when you should raise your hand. When you open your salah, when you go down for ruku', when you come back up from ruku', and when you're finishing and standing up from your first tashahhud. The next is that you fold your right hand over your left hand, except that madhab of Imam Malik, who believe that you should not have your hands folded at all during salah. The next sunnah act is to look down at the spot of the sajda while you are praying, except for when you are sitting down for the tashahhud, at which point some scholars believe that you should be looking at your index finger. The starting the salah with a prescribed dua from the Prophet ﷺ is a sunnah act, and there are several different dua that we have recorded from the Prophet ﷺ, and you can find them in the book, inshallah. Saying Ameen after the Imam has read the Surah Al-Fatiha is a sunnah act. There is a difference of opinion on whether or not it should be said out loud. Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik believe that you should not say it out loud, whereas Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad believe that you should say it out loud. There should be a short silence before and after the Quran is recited for the reciter to catch their breath. A person is recommended to spread their feet while they are standing so that their feet are lined up with their shoulders. A person is recommended to read a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha in the first two rak'at of any salah. They should also be reading a dua between the two sujood. When a person sits for the final tashahhud, they should sit in the position of tawarruk, which is demonstrated by Shaykh Yasir Rajas in the picture above. They should place their hands on their thighs while they are in this position, and they should point out their index finger during it. It is highly encouraged for a person to recite a dua that they know after they have completed the tashahhud and the Salat al-Ibrahimiyya and before the taslim. Imam Abu Hanifa is the only scholar who disagrees with this, and he believes that you should not do this. The final sunnah act in the salah is to turn the face towards the right and the left while you perform the taslim. What are the acts that are makruh, that is disliked, and mubah, that is permissible during salah? So what is makruh is to omit one of the wajibat of salah intentionally. Another is to move around excessively without a valid excuse. Closing your eyes while you're praying or looking away from the spot of sujood during salah is a makruh act. If you are in need to visit the restroom, you should do so before you start your salah. It is disliked to be yawning excessively during salah, and if it is possible, you should try and stifle that while you pray. Spreading your forearms on the ground is disliked as well. One thing we should realize when you're standing for salah is that you're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is our creator. So it is disliked to be dressed poorly or untidily, and to wear distracting or very tight clothing, because it will distract people who are praying next to us, and it may reveal our awrah. What are the things that you can do during salah? Well, one is that you can pray behind somebody else, and they can act as your sutra. Another is that you can move to stop imminent danger or to stop harm from happening. You can assist an imam if he makes a mistake. Finally, you can respond to the salam of a person by your hand, and you can respond to a caller using a sign. There are a few key differences between the prayer of men and the prayer of women. Women have to cover the entire body, whereas men have a much more limited awrah. Women have to raise their hands to their shoulders, whereas men have to raise them to their ears. Men have to spread their hands out in sujood, whereas women are not asked to do so. It is encouraged that women bring their stomach close to their thighs in sujood, and that when they are sitting down, they sit on their heels and they bring their knees together. When the imam makes a mistake, the women are supposed to correct the imam by clapping their hands, and they are not supposed to say subhanallah. If there is a female imam, which would happen for a female only congregation, then she would stand in the middle of the first row, and she is not allowed to recite out loud if there are any men present in the vicinity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us rukhas, or alleviations, for people who are traveling. The first alleviation is qasr, which is shortening the salah. During qasr, dhuhr, asr and isha are reduced from 4 rak'at to 2 rak'at each. Is it obligatory for you to shorten your prayer? Imam Abu Hanifa and the scholars of Ahl Hadith believe it is wajib for you to shorten your prayer if you are traveling. Imam Malik believes that it is just a recommended act, whereas Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad believe that it is simply permissible to shorten your prayer while traveling. All the scholars of fiqh have the same hadith as the evidence for their opinion, and that is the hadith of Ya'la ibn Umayyah, and you can find that listed out fully in the book. What is the minimum distance required for a person to travel before they can start to shorten their prayer? The scholars of the 4 schools of fiqh believe that you have to travel for 3 days and 3 nights by camel, which is equivalent to a distance of 50 miles, before you're allowed to shorten your prayer. The Salaf al-Salih, or the pious predecessors, along with these scholars of the school of Ahl Hadith, believe that travel is defined by custom. Therefore, if the majority of people believe that the act that you undertake constitutes travel, you are allowed to shorten your prayer. A person can continue to shorten his prayer until that person intends to reside at that location. How long does it take for a person to establish residency at a location? Imam Abu Hanifa believes that a person will establish residency at 15 days. Imam Malik, Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad believe that if you intend to stay for 4 days or longer, you cannot shorten your prayer. The scholars of Ahl Hadith differ on this issue, and they believe that a person can continue to shorten their prayer as long as they do not intend to reside in that place. Another concession given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Jam'a, which is combining Salah. And this can be done between Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr or Salat al-Maghrib and Isha. If the combination is done in the time of the first Salah, it is called Jam' Taqdeem. If it is done in the time of the second Salah, it is called Jam' Ta'akhir. Imam Abu Hanifa believes that this Jam' or combining of Salah can only be done during Hajj on specific days and at specific times and for specific Salah. The rest of the scholars believe that a traveler can combine their Salah. With that, we conclude chapter 5. And Jazakumullahu khairan for watching this study session. If you found it beneficial, I'd highly encourage you to share it with your friends. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at almaghrib.seattle@gmail.com. I would highly encourage all of you to enroll for our next amazing seminar on May 2nd called Deception, a study of the shaitan by Sheikh Sa'ad Taslim. For more details, go to almaghrib.org/Seattle. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.